I generally like to start with my darkest dark. It doesn't matter if I'm painting inside or outside. And in this, you can see it from the source photograph on the left, that the tree, and there's a stone wall. That's the darkest dark. So I mixed up for this. It was, I believe, ultramarine blue. For the tree, I mean, it was ultramarine blue and cad lemon. Could have been, I think, also a little bit of raw sienna. And here it's more raw sienna. You can see it's definitely more ochre-y, raw sienna and ultramarine blue. So that the reason I do this is because I can judge my other values. Nothing is going to be as dark as the tree. So this next part is the mountain, and you saw it was a little bit too blue. I think it was a little bit darker, so I'm kind of bending my color value, and I put a little dab in there, as you can see right there, just to test it. I want to make sure that that mountain in the back is not as nearly as dark as the tree. And that's the problem I see with some students' work, is that their values of the planes, like the mountain behind it, is getting to be as dark. And over there, I'm scraping off my palette knife, the paint that I scooped together. And you might be watching this right now and say, well, I can't see your color mixing. I just don't only set up one camera on this one. I just wanted to shoot this. That's why you're not seeing the palette. I just didn't have time to set up the palette. But yeah, so the value difference of between the tree and the distant mountain that I'm laying in right now, it has to be lighter, the distant mountains. Because if you're going to paint it very similar, the distant mountain is the tree value, then it looks like it's literally sitting like 2 feet behind it. Here, it's probably like a half a mile. So the further you go back in the distance, the lighter and cooler, bluer things get. That's just the way it works. When you paint it outdoors, I'm not sure if you have personally, but that's what you get to learn outside is one of the big things is your values, pushing things properly back. And yeah, those are really key. So I'm just kind of constantly laying in. I'm using and there you can see a little different mixture coming in, just a little bit. I think a little bit of alizarin in there in this mixture. I mixed alizarin, crimson, and ultramarine blue together with some raw sienna. If you're wondering what that mixture, that mountain is, roughly that's what it is. I'm trying to kill and mute down the blueness of the mountain. I don't want it to be too blue, but at the same time, I don't want to put too much raw sienna in there. Then it would start making it look a little bit greenish. And the paper I'm painting, it's a sanded paper. Pastel artists use this, and I just love the tooth on this. I don't paint on this all the time, but I wanted to just kind of experiment a little bit and see what it does. It's got a lot of tooth to it, as you can see. I'm using a number 6. See that little dab that I did there, right there? That was definitely I'm testing the values, and I'm still looking at big picture stuff. I'm not looking at any detail. Basically, I'm painting sort of in the shadow area of the mountain right now with the darkness of how dark there's a hill. There's like a distant hill, I think, that comes down in front of the other mountain, the one in the way back. Now you can see me laying in the light, where the light hits the mountain on the lower side. Again, the values here have to be somewhat close. If they're too far apart, they're going to pop too much and it's going to attract your eye too much. So I don't want that. So I'm eliminating the trees on the left. That's why I'm painting through that. Right now you're not seeing the trees on the left being painted, and I'm going to leave those out. And what you're seeing is the light hitting the top of those ridges. That's what it is, and you'll see it coming in on the right. I'm squinting down pretty hard because I want to make sure the value difference of what I'm laying in right now, what you're seeing right now, that value is lighter, but not too much lighter. So I want to have the feel of sunlight hitting the the mountain, but they have to be in the same value. I mean, same color family too. It's not gonna turn like green, you know, where the sunlight hits it. It has to have its, you know, DNA of that color, what's in the shadow, the big blue mountain. So, and obviously I added white to it, if you're wondering. I mean, you still need white. There's no getting around. And you can get away with white when you're further back, as you're going back into the distance further, because things get more muted. And the more white you put into something, the more it mutes the color. I'm sure you noticed that before. That's nothing new. But again, I'm looking at big picture. I'm not looking at detail. I put in my darkest dark. I know nothing is going to be as dark as that tree and sort of that wall, that rock wall. Kind of what I did up there, just testing my color and value. Make sure when I start going in there with the, that's the snow. I should say it's a glacier because it was in the summer. And this scene is from the Canadian Rockies. It's near the Lake O'Hara region. This is Lake MacArthur. We had to hike up. I think it was about an hour hike to get in there. And that's the blue of the water I'm laying in. It's amazing there. It's this glacial water that's sort of aqua, bluish green, and it's pretty intense. The first time you see it, it looks like it's beautiful Caribbean water, but it's ice cold. Continue with bringing in my darkest darks, and there's some reflected light within that wall. Eventually I'll get in there. Again, looking at the big picture, I'm not looking at detail. The biggest problem you can run into at this point is you're going to start looking at detail, and that'll kill the spontaneousness of the painting, the poetry of it. That's one of the most toughest things as a painter when you're learning, is you want to, I mean, in a way, when you're learning, you do have to understand proportion and all these things. That's why figure drawing is really important. But once you understand those things and your mind gets trained enough, then you can, it's not cheating, you're not putting in detail, basically. You're suggesting. When we're learning, it's more literal, and when we're more advanced, then we can suggest, because we know what we can leave out. But in the beginning, we don't know what to leave out. We want to put in everything. And it's important to learn those things in the beginning, but after a while, you should let go of certain things if you want to create more poetic paintings. And I'm putting a little bit of the highlight of the rock where the sun hits it. It's this rock wall that someone built. It could have been the Forest Service. And so this way I get to see how dark that wall it really is, so I can start lightening it up a little bit. I'm using it's like a hardware brush that you're seeing right now. This is cheap, like, I don't know, it's like $1. And I love that because I love that brush because it's got so many stories you can tell with it. I can go thick, thin, and it kind of forces you to go. It needs paint. You cannot go too thin with that, so it forces you to use paint. And as it wears out, I keep some of them for certain effects. It's really nice way of laying in some shrubbery. Now this brush is a filbert. It's an extra long filbert. The reason I like it, I can load up on a paint with it. I can make it razor sharp, like an edge with it, and it's got a lot of bounce to it because it's a long bristle. The mixture here, it's raw sienna. The darks that you see, it's like raw sienna, yellow ochre. There's a little bit of I didn't put alizarin crimson in there. It's burnt sienna in there too, blue. So that's sort of the earth tones in the foreground. Still keeping it dark because the dark areas, the spots that you see in the foreground, is what I'm going for first, and then I will go over it. Here it's I think this was cobalt blue. Probably there's a little cerulean in there too. And as you can see from the photo reference, the mountain the big peak, the cloud kind of mimics the shape, and I didn't want that in there. I wanted to me, it was more about the mountain in the lower part of this painting than the sky. So I want to keep the sky somewhat simple. That's you have to, before you start, you have to think or ask yourself, what is this about? Is this about the mountain? Is it about the foreground? Am I celebrating color? Am I celebrating value? So you have to think a little bit before you start painting, because otherwise you're going to be shouting, in the sense you're going to make everything important, and then nothing will be important if everything is important. Sort of like a movie, you have to have a main character and you have supporting roles. It's the same concept here. So kind of gently going around it. I want to make sure my paint does not, the light paint of the sky does not get pulled into the darkness, the dark value there. So I'm real careful. As you see, I'm kind of flicking and cleaning my brush at the same time. And I'm gonna, as the horizon gets lower, it gets lighter, the sky. So that's how you get sort of a three-dimensional effect to the, and I'm gonna lay in a little bit of the clouds there. This was, I think it was a 1114, 9 by 12, 1114. It was, I call this definitely more of a study. It's not as refined as I get some of the larger pieces, but it definitely could stand on its own. And so there it is. I'm putting in, so there was a reflected light beforehand, not what I'm putting down right now, but originally when you saw me putting the lighter value. Now I'm putting in the, as I'm squinting, try to squint on my photo reference, and you'll see the values are close within the shadows, the glacier. So I'm sorry, I said it was the glacier I'm laying in. It wasn't the glacier that I was laying in before. Now I'm laying in the glacier. But I have to make sure the value of the mountain is what I want it to be before I start putting in this glacier. Because it's just not going to look right. And here you'll see it when the glacier hits the light. That's where it makes more sense. So again, it's dark to light. That's, we want to jump right to the dessert, but the reality is that we got to be patient with this. We can't just jump to all the fun stuff first. We got to lay in the big things first. That's really key. Just gonna continue with the tree a little bit. And the reason I like to do these smaller paintings too, if I'm going to do anything bigger, is I want to see if the design works out. I can do this in Photoshop too. And but I want to see it on a painting too. Is it going to work or not? Or do I have to move something or not? And yeah, just now I'm going to start adding in where the light hits the glacier, the snow, frozen snow. So it has to read right. It's all about values. Is the number one. It starts with the concept, design, value, and those things, and then color towards. It's definitely lower on the scale, but yeah, you can see how it's slowly coming alive now with adding the lighter values in. I mean, you can, at this point, you can put some glacier areas wherever you want to within the mountain, as long as it fits your design. Here, I'm going to start lightening up the inside. The reflected light as that wall is getting hit by the reflected light. Once you start adding reflected light into a rock or a face of a building, anything, it could be a tree trunk too. It'll make it come alive. So here I zoomed in a little bit more. I'm gonna start. This is yellow ochre and ultramarine blue. You can try cadmium lemon. It's cadmium lemon and ultramarine blue. More lemon at this point. When I hit it with that area there, I put a little bit more lemon in there. And I'm using very, very tiny, if anything. I didn't even put much white into this at this point. It's more pure colors. I mean, pure colors in the sense of no white in it. And but you can use ivory black and yellow, cadmium lemon, and it'll give you a beautiful warm green also. So yeah, just those are some rocks. I'm looking at abstract elements. I'm not looking at detail whatsoever. And that was probably my biggest jump as a painter, is when I started looking at shapes rather than what the subject is. Like, I'm not looking at a tree as a tree. I'm just looking at it as shapes, darks, 3-4 values. And I'm not looking at the detail at all. And I had a lot more success when I did that. Just jumping over to the other side, continuing with bringing in more of the mid-tones and eventually the lightest lights. Kind of taking my time a little bit. I want to make sure my values are reading correctly. That's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my source photo, and then looking at the painting ultimately, because nobody sees the source photo at the end. If you're going to make this as a painting, you're going to hang somewhere. No one's going to have the source photo next to it. So it's got to stand on its own. Bottom line, that painting within those four corners have to read well design-wise and color and value and all those things. People don't, they will not see the reference. This is a rock over here. Try to have some reflected light, kind of bringing up the value. I'm continuing to lay in some of the sort of mid-tones in the rocks. There's a lot of reflected light on those rocks, but I'm not going for that right away. As you can see, I was putting in more of the mid-tones, go a little bit lighter. Gently bringing up those rocks. And again, not detailing this, and it's a smaller painting, so you can't jam too much in there, but generally 3 to 4 values, that's a big one too. If you're watching this, you want to jot this down. Generally, in most landscape paintings, you want to have no more than, about 4 values. And if you're going to start putting in 6, 7, 8 values, it's going to get too scattered. It's going to start popping, pop, left and right too much. It's a good rule to have. You can test this out for yourself. You should be studying other great landscape artists. There are some living ones, definitely, that you should be looking at. Clyde Asmovic, Matt Smith, those are always top of the list for landscape painters. And there's other ones. I'll try to remember them in a second here as I'm talking here. But try to, and of course the deceased artist, some of the Google California, early California Impressionists, or those were some great landscape painters in America. And there's some Russian ones that are just wonderful. Here right now, I'm continuing to try to bring in a little bit more light into the paintings. Right there, yeah. It's just bringing more life into that shadow. Because shadows, the problem with the camera, that the shadows, the camera crushes. Our eyes can see into the shadows, but the cameras don't read it that way. So that's why it's important to paint from life. That's definitely an important thing to do. Look at Herbert Dunton, his work too, deceased. Just a master of design. As the painting just kind of develops, keep refining it with the lights. More lights, mid-tones and lights. That's a mixture of white, by the way, probably yellow color, and then a little bit of the blue, ultramarine blue, to mute it down. That's what that mixture is. The mixture in the rock that I just put in recently, that's a mixture of, there's white in there, there's yellow ochre, a little bit of blue. It's constantly comparing things. See how much paint I have on that brush? I really loaded up on that brush, and I'm gently putting in those where the grass is getting lit by the lighter values. But gently, that's the key, gently. Don't push too hard on your brush. I see my students pushing too hard. Don't push, be gentle. And look at the angle of my brush. It's sideways, not the tip of the brush hitting it. It's the side of the brush. And this is the tree, the main character. I mean, the darkest dark in the painting, so your eye does go to it. And I'm going to start defining a little bit more where the light is coming in from. Look at everything geometrically. You know, this is right now a cone. Basically, it's got, you know, light, middle, and dark side. Basically, you can break it down to 3 value, maybe 4, but that's about it. Look at Edgar Payne, as I'm thinking of other deceased artists. Edgar Payne, great landscape painter of the past. Look at, as far as living, Len Schmiel, with the CH, Schmiel. Skip Wickham, with the W. Look at Dan Young's work, Ralph Wahlberg. Ralph's been definitely, Ralph does a lot of wildlife, but his landscape paintings are real nice too. Look at John Burton, Jesse Powell. I'm just kind of going through some names. Josh Elliott, for sure. So I'm adding in a little bit more detail, but not over detailing this. And again, the point of this painting wasn't to polish it too much. And I rub my finger there. And as I'm zooming out, I should say, it's a piece I was happy with. It's something that that I needed to do for possibly a larger painting. So it was really important to study this smaller painting, look at my photo reference, and see what becomes of it. I maybe would have put in some other darker trees on the left, a little bit lower down, not as tall as this. That's one thing as I'm looking at the painting itself. That's probably what I would have done if I'm bringing this into a larger painting, and that's why it's important for me to do these smaller paintings too. But again, look for the large shapes. Don't look at detail too much. You'll definitely have a more poetic painting. If you enjoyed this demonstration, make sure you check out my I call it a master package. There's 3 videos inside it at the link that I have. That one has my palette. You get to see my mixes too, and they're usually definitely longer videos than these. But I always want to make sure you get value out of my videos. So this video package that once you get to that page, definitely is a little bit more robust. And again, subscribe to my channel if you like it, or give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, whichever. I would just love to hear your comments. And I just want to always make sure that I give you value in anything that I do. Thank you for watching the demonstration. I hope you enjoyed it. Always remember 3 to 4 values generally in a landscape painting. Maybe 5, but if you're going to be putting 6, 7, 8 values within the painting, it's going to get too scattered out. It's going to shot out all over. There will be no harmony to the painting. That's definitely one of the things I've learned over the years to keep it to that 3, 4, maybe 5 values at the most. And again, squint down. That's another important thing. I'm sure you heard these things before. I'm not the first ones to say it, but as my students say when I teach, Gabor, I can hear you talk about all these things over and over again, because these are the important things. They might sound fundamental. You might be watching this like, I know that stuff. Well, that's great, but you better put it into your painting. It better be visual in that painting, because if it's not in there, some of these basic principles, the painting is gonna suffer. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video. I do have a video series. There'll be a link popping up somewhere. And that one has my color mixing. You'll see my palette also in that one. Those are longer demonstrational videos, the link that you'll see somewhere. And again, those, you will actually see my color mixing in those, and they are longer videos. So I hope you click on that link. I'm hoping you'll subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. I would always love to hear your comments, and I always get back to everyone on those. So again, thanks for watching.